Behind the badge, 3 terrifying police encounters. Shots fired, the words no officer wants to hear crackle over their radio. But on these 3 nights, gunfire would have been a welcome alternative to the horrors these officers encountered. A silent house harboring a deadly secret, an apartment where the walls themselves held evil, and a woman whose bloody ritual brought terror to a quiet neighborhood. These aren't campfire stories, they're real incidents that pushed hardened officers to their breaking point. What follows are their accounts, exactly as they reported them. But be warned, there's a reason these veterans still check their closets at night. The silent scream. I've been with the Bergen County Sheriff's Department for 2 years, working the night shift. Usually, the most excitement I see involves drug arrests or the occasional robbery. Northeast Bergen County isn't exactly a crime hotspot. But there was this one night that changed everything. The call came in about a disturbance. Someone reported hearing a scream from a nearby house. Typically, these turn out to be domestic disputes or just rowdy partygoers. Nothing serious. This time was different. When I pulled up to the address, I had to double-check the house number. Every light was off, but there was a blue Toyota Sienna in the driveway. Someone was home. After knocking several times with no response, the neighbor who made the call approached me. He described hearing a blood-curdling scream from inside. The woman who lived there was usually alone, he said, though her boyfriend visited occasionally. That detail made my stomach turn. I tried the front door, locked. Moving around the house, I checked every window. All secured except one in the back, slid completely up. Just wide enough for someone to climb through. That was when every instinct told me something was wrong. I called for backup and made the decision to enter. Inside, I methodically turned on every light. Contrary to what you see in movies, we actually prefer to see what we're dealing with. I announced myself repeatedly, but the first floor remained silent and empty. The stairs to the second floor loomed before me. I knew I should wait for backup, but the thought of someone potentially needing immediate help pushed me forward. After unlocking the front door for my incoming support, I started up those carpeted steps. Halfway up, I heard it, a creaking sound from behind one of the 4 doors upstairs. When I reached the hallway and flicked on the lights, I saw her, a woman lying in bed, visible through an open doorway, just the back of her head showing above the covers. As I approached to check on her, I noticed dark stains soaking through the blanket on her far side. My heart stopped. I pulled back the covers to find multiple stab wounds. She was still breathing, but barely. That's when it hit me. The creaking sound I'd heard moments ago. It couldn't have been her. Someone else was here. I spun around, gun drawn, scanning the room. The closet was the obvious place to look, but it was empty. Then I remembered something else. The space under the bed. Getting down on my knees, I lifted the bed skirt and found myself eye to eye with a man wearing a face mask. I let out an involuntary shriek and ordered him to show his hands. He raised them slowly in the confined space. I kept him at gunpoint in the corner until backup arrived. The woman survived her 6 stab wounds. The attacker was her boyfriend. He discovered she was cheating with his friend, and when she broke up with him over the phone, something in him snapped. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd waited for backup that night. But I know I made the right call. She might not have survived those extra minutes. The people in the walls. This story comes from my best friend's Uncle Mike, a night shift police officer in our city. He and his partner Steve, both Army veterans, thought they'd seen it all. Until that night. It started with a routine call from a landlord about a tenant's strange behavior. When they arrived at the apartment complex around 2 a.m., they found all the residents standing outside on the grass. Not exactly normal. The landlord was ranting about a tenant in his 30s who'd apparently lost his mind and turned on every water source in his apartment. Water was literally seeping out from under the front door. Inside, it was cascading down the stairs like a waterfall. This wasn't a recent development. The flooding suggested the water had been running for hours. They found the tenant, Adam, standing in his kitchen. Every faucet, shower head, and even an outdoor hose was gushing water. But it was Adam's demeanor that truly unsettled them. He stood completely still, shaking, his eyes wide with terror. "Adam, are you all right?" Mike asked, while Steve checked the rest of the apartment. Adam wouldn't even look at him. Finally, he stuttered out words that made Mike's blood run cold. "There are people in the walls." He kept repeating it, getting louder and more frantic with each iteration until he was screaming. Meanwhile, Steve was checking the bedroom when he noticed something odd, a faint line running across one wall. At first, he dismissed it, but then he heard Adam's screams about people in the walls. The line formed the shape of a door. They approached it with guns drawn, Adam sobbing behind them. Steve pulled back the section of wall, and they froze. 3 pairs of eyes stared back at them. 3 people were crammed into the tiny space, their faces painted with bizarre patterns. The truth, when it finally came out months later, was even more disturbing. The 3 were members of a woodland cult who had targeted Adam, knowing his history of mental instability. They were trying to recruit him through fear. Adam had turned on all the water trying to flush them out of his home. Mike and Steve still say it's the most disturbing call they've ever responded to. The woman with the knife. During a 12-hour overnight shift, we received calls about a suspicious person going door to door. The description was unsettling. A middle-aged woman with wild, wiry hair, holding something behind her back, demanding people open their doors. The homeowner who called showed me his Ring doorbell footage. The woman stood there for minutes, just staring at the camera before pressing the button. When the owner asked who she was, she kept repeating, "Open the door, she needs blood," followed by disturbing laughter. When he threatened to call the police, she started attacking the door and trying to tear off the camera. The way she backed away, still facing the camera, keeping whatever she was holding hidden behind her back. It was like something from a horror movie. We organized a small manhunt, describing her as possibly armed and dangerous. Then we got another call, a breaking and entering. The homeowners were trapped upstairs while the woman was in their house. When we arrived, we found the front door unlocked. As we cleared the first floor, we heard screams from upstairs. The homeowners were barricaded in their bedroom, saying she'd been clawing at their door minutes ago. In the corner bedroom, in pitch darkness, we heard cackling. When I turned on the light, there she sat on the bed, smiling at us, holding a huge knife. Blood soaked the sheets, her own blood from a self-inflicted wrist wound. Between her legs sat a child's doll covered in her blood. She kept muttering about needing blood, laughing maniacally. We tried reasoning with her, but she was beyond reach. Suddenly, she launched herself at me with an animal growl, knife raised. I had no choice. I fired twice, hitting her arm. She survived and was later found not guilty by reason of insanity. She's now in a mental institution. But the terror she caused that night, to the homeowners, to my fellow officers, to myself, was unlike anything I've experienced in my 10 years on the force. The image of her sitting there covered in blood, clutching that doll and laughing, it still haunts me to this day. These 3 encounters from the thin blue line remind us that sometimes the most terrifying moments come when duty calls us to face the unknown. Whether it's checking a quiet house at 2 a.m., responding to a bizarre disturbance, or confronting someone who's lost touch with reality, our officers face these dark moments so we don't have to. To the men and women who put on the badge each night, knowing they might encounter situations like these, thank you. Your courage in the face of both human and seemingly inhuman threats keeps our communities safe. If you found these accounts as chilling as I did, share them with others who appreciate true crime and real-life horror stories. Every officer has that one call they'll never forget, and these are just 3 of countless untold stories from the night shift. Don't forget to like, follow, and comment with your own experiences or thoughts. And if you're a first responder with your own story to tell, we'd love to hear from you. Stay safe out there. And remember, when you hear strange noises at night, these are the people who answer your call.